Boom. The hammer just dropped on Paul George. The NBA slapped him with a massive 25-game ban for failing the league's anti-drug protocols. You take performance enhancers to dominate the hardwood, get caught red-handed, and then pivot to blaming your mental health? That is the narrative right now. Paul George is officially sidelined. Now he is making rounds, issuing apologies, and citing medication for his headspace. But rumor has it the league might have cut him a break if he snitched on suppliers. Who is the real target here? Before we dive deep into this mess, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more exclusive NBA updates. Let's break it down. Paul George's suspension is the headline shaking the league to its core. This is a 9-time All-Star, the guy Philadelphia handed over $200 million to rescue their championship dreams, and he just got himself ejected for 25 games with zero pay. Listen to me, this is not a warning shot. This is a full-blown first strike violation of the NBA's collective bargaining agreement regarding drugs, and the fallout is catastrophic for the Sixers. The league made the call official on January 31st, 2026, and the clock started ticking immediately. He was scratched right before tip-off against the New Orleans Pelicans that very night. Just let that sink in for a moment. 1 second, you are lacing up your kicks, prepping for battle. The next, the commissioner is telling you to clear out your locker and sit on the couch for 2.5 months. It is a total shock to the system, and the basketball community is still trying to process the chaos. This is where the plot thickens. The NBA keeps the specific failed substance under lock and key. They never leak the exact chemical. It is strictly confidential. However, a 25-game suspension is the standard punishment for performance-enhancing drugs. We are talking steroids, peptides, SARMs, or other hard-hitting boosters banned by the league. And let us be crystal clear, we are not talking about weed. The league stopped testing for marijuana, natural cannabis way back in 2023. So whatever was in Georgia's system, the NBA views it as a major competitive integrity issue. But hold on, the story gets crazier. Immediately after the news broke, PG-13 sent a statement to ESPN insider Shams Charania. Here is his defense. He claims he has been vocal about prioritizing mental health for years. He says he sought treatment recently for a personal issue and accidentally ingested a medication that is on the prohibited list. He claims he owns the mistake completely and accepts the punishment. He sent apologies to his family, the Sixers front office, the locker room, and the fan base for dropping the ball. He vowed to keep working on his mental well-being and promised to come back stronger. Now, I need to keep it 100 with you guys. Paul, George is spinning this entirely as a mental health mishap. The narrative is, I needed help, I took the wrong pill, and now I am banned. It is a tragic story if true. To his credit, the man has been very transparent about his battles with anxiety and depression, especially during that 2020 bubble run and after tough playoff exits. He has talked about it on his own show, so the context is there. But I have to put my detective hat on. The timing, it is extremely suspicious. Don't forget to subscribe if you love deep dives like this. Look at the calendar. Just days before the January 28th suspension, Paul George went absolute supernova against the Milwaukee Bucks. He dropped 32 points and drained 9 three-pointers. 9. This is a guy who has been limping through the season, only playing 27 games and sitting out 20. Then, out of nowhere, he looks like the Indiana Pacers version of himself. Even Gilbert Arenas called it out on his podcast. He said that performance was a red flag to the league. He basically said, look, you drop 35, grab 5 boards, 5 assists, and hit 9 threes? Yeah, that triggered a random drug test, and by Saturday, he was done. After being hurt all year? Come on. People are whispering that this sudden burst of elite athleticism brought the heat from the testers. You know how the NBA operates. If you look washed up, then suddenly look like a god, the league gets curious. That curiosity led to a cup. And that cup led to results Paul George could not hide from. Now, let's talk about the money, because the financial hit is eye-watering. Remember, George signed a 4-year, $212 million max deal in 2024. He is pulling in nearly $51.7 million for the 2025-26 season. That is roughly $469,000 every single game. Do the math. Over 25 games, Paul George is torching nearly $1,600,000 $700,000 in forfeited salary. Just gone because of a slip-up. The guy is 35 years old. He hit that milestone in May 2025, and his body is breaking down. Now he has to sit on the sidelines while his squad fights for playoff positioning. He is iced until March 25th, 2026, when Philly plays the Chicago Bulls. That leaves him a measly 10 games to get his legs back under him before the postseason begins. The Sixers were sitting at 26-21, holding the 6th seed when the news dropped. They were heating up with a 4-game streak. They finally looked like a threat with Embiid, Maxey, and George clicking. Snap your fingers, and 1/3 of that trident is vanished for 3 months. You literally cannot script this drama. Here is a detail many fans miss regarding the rules. The league has a therapeutic use exemption, or TUE. If you legitimately need a banned drug for medical reasons, you file paperwork, get approved, and you are good to go. Guys do it for ADHD meds all the time, but Paul George, he seemingly skipped that step. He popped the pill without getting the green light from the league office, and that negligence is what cost him. But the real question mark hanging over everything is this. Paul George insists it was mental health meds, yet he won't say which one. He is keeping the details vague. The improper medication defense? Yeah, right. That vague excuse has everyone scratching their heads, and honestly, nobody is buying it. The mental health card just isn't playing well here. The backlash to the Paul George suspension has been absolutely nuclear. We are talking major media. Titans, ex-pros, courtside analysts, and the entire fan base tossing in their 2 cents. And let me tell you, the skepticism is off the charts. Nobody is. Swallowing that story hook, line, and sinker. The guys over at Sports Grid, Donnie and Joe, absolutely torched George's statement. They didn't mince words and went straight for the jugular. Their take? Quit lying to yourself. You are getting up there in age. You feel the massive pressure of that max contract. You want to prove you are still elite for the Philadelphia 76ers. So, you took something to get an edge, got caught, and now you are hiding behind a mental health shield. Over on Inside the NBA, Shaq and Chuck were visibly stunned. Charles Barkley specifically brought up how the league has historically been chill about weed, but he hammered home that they do not mess around with hard performance enhancers. He called the entire scenario strictly suspicious. And listen, when Sir Charles says something smells fishy, the world listens. The guy has seen everything in this league, and he knows when the math doesn't add up. Stephen A. Smith on First Take labeled this a catastrophe for the Sixers' title hopes, and you know what? He is spot on. This squad was built to chase a ring right now, and suddenly they have to navigate a minefield without one of their superstars for 25 games. Before we continue, if you think the Sixers are cooked, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. You can't just shrug off a loss like that. The Philly front office must be absolutely livid behind closed doors. Former pros like Jeff Teague raised an eyebrow, hinting that the red flags might have popped up after George had that massive scoring night recently. He asked a real question: should meds for focus or ADHD really result in such a brutal suspension if they aren't steroids? It is a valid debate. If a guy is legitimately trying to fix his mental space, does he deserve the hammer dropped this hard? The Sports Grid host kept piling on, noting that this excuse is going to stain Paul George's legacy forever. Come on, man. This isn't about mental wellness. It is not. Quantum physics. Deflecting to a sensitive topic like that was a bad move. Just own your mistake and push forward, because like Donnie said, nobody is going to remember the details in a week. That will be yesterday's news. But the crew on the Speakeasy podcast didn't even bother with the sugarcoating. They called George's statement total garbage, flat out accusing him of cheating with enhancers and using mental struggles as a convenient cover. Now, that is a heavy charge to level at someone, but let's be real, it mirrors what everyone is whispering in private. When you release a statement that says absolutely nothing, the public is going to write their own narrative, and usually they aren't going to be generous with the benefit of the doubt. On Nightcap, Shannon Sharpe and Chad Ochocinco Johnson broke down the angle from every side. Unc showed a little grace, but he stood firm on accountability. You can have empathy for a man's struggle and still demand he follows the rules. Those two things aren't mutually exclusive. That is just keeping it 100. Paul George is a veteran who made a choice, and now he has to eat the consequences. Social media, of course, went absolutely supernova. The memes were ruthless, mocking George for supposedly juicing and still playing poorly. Users were tweeting things like, Paul George gets banned 25 games for the NBA drug policy, yet the man was on performance enhancers and still playing like trash. Another classic was a clip of him airballing with a caption laughing that he was on PEDs and still missing the rim. The internet takes no prisoners. But you have to laugh at the dark irony of a player allegedly cheating to get better and still not playing at an elite level. Don't forget to subscribe if you love this kind of drama. Some folks even started demanding tests for legends like LeBron James. Look, there is zero proof to back up any shade thrown at other players. But that is the web for you. One domino falls, and suddenly everybody wants to launch a witch hunt to see who else is dirty. It is just human nature to get paranoid once someone in the circle gets busted. The rumor mill regarding exactly what Paul George popped for is spinning out of control. A lot of insiders think it might be a stimulant like Adderall, common for ADHD, but totally illegal in the league without a waiver. Players can get a pass if they have a doctor's note, but it looks like PG skipped that step. Others are convinced it is old school steroids given his age and the decline in his game. The internet has already rebranded him PEDP and Prescription P, which I have to admit is pretty witty. The guy has had a million nicknames, and now he has added a few he definitely didn't ask for. Analysts like Rhea Hughes slammed George for not running the meds by his agent or the league first, and she is 100% right. These guys have access to world-class medical teams and consultants that regular folks can only imagine. If you are putting anything in your body knowing you get tested, you check the label twice, you get approval. That is just basic IQ. You are raking in over $50 million a year. Pick up the phone and ask if the pill is safe. The theories range from synthetic cannabinoids to peptides or SAR myths, but unless the league leaks the report, we are all just throwing darts in the dark. The NBA keeps the files sealed tight, so we might never know the specific chemical Paul George tested. Positive 4. And frankly, that silence is the only thing keeping his reputation from completely collapsing right now. On the Gilbert Arenas podcast, the squad had a totally different perspective. They argued that players have been navigating these gray areas for ages. Mental health? Yeah, right. They were claiming 41 other guys are likely doing the exact same thing. Why aren't we pointing fingers at them too? $50 million riding on his physique. He puts in the work, but there is a major question mark surrounding Paul right now. The golden rule in this league is simple. Do not get caught, but stay locked in because this narrative is about to take a wild left turn. While the headlines are obsessed with Paul George's infraction, there is a shadow game being played that the mainstream media is ignoring, involving alleged backroom deals and secret offers from the league office. Make sure you subscribe to the channel as we dig into these rumors. This is where the story gets explosive. Reports suggest that Paul George was not simply handed a suspension and sent home. There was reportedly a high-stakes negotiation happening behind the scenes. A Facebook report from Scrooge TV claims that league officials gave George an ultimatum. Give up the names of other players using banned substances, and we might wipe away your 8. Suspension. But here is the part that demands respect. Paul George allegedly looked them in the eye and said no. He chose to serve the 25-game ban, rather than violate the locker room code. The fans loved it, flooding the comments with praise for his loyalty and refusal to become an informant. Now, we need to be responsible here. The NBA's official policy does not publicly advertise snitching incentives, and giants like ESPN or The Athletic have not confirmed this specific rumor. However, the fact that this conversation is even happening reveals the intense loyalty culture within the sport. Players operate like a brotherhood, and selling out a teammate is the ultimate sin that you cannot come back from. On the Gilbert Arenas podcast, they broke down how the league actually helps shield players by keeping the specific substance names out of the press, allowing the athletes to spin their own PR stories. You know how the league operates. They protect the asset. That is the reality. They are not going to release the chemical name because that damages the brand, definitely. But before we go further, smash that like button and let us look at the history of this anti-drug program to understand the gravity of the situation. This system launched in 1983 to fight a massive image crisis, specifically the cocaine epidemic of the 70s and 80s. Back then, it was the Wild West. Some reports say nearly 75% of the roster was using recreational drugs. It was a dark era, and the executives were scrambling to save the sport from collapsing. The drug culture nearly wiped the NBA off the map. Arenas were empty, viewership tanked, and the league was becoming a punchline. Then Commissioner David Stern stepped in with an iron fist to clean house. The strict testing we see today was born from that desperation to survive, and it has adapted over decades to catch modern cheats. Under Article 33 of the 2023 Collective Bargaining Agreement, the rules are strict. If you get popped for performance enhancers, the math is simple. Strike 1 is 25 games, strike 2 bumps it up to 55 games, and a third strike means you are banned from the association with a minimum 2-year wait to apply for reinstatement. Paul George is now sitting on strike 1. One more slip up and he misses half a season. A third mistake effectively retires him. The science behind this is categorized strictly. You have your drugs of abuse, which include heavy hitters like cocaine, opioids, and methamphetamine. Then you have the performance enhancers, steroids, HGH, peptides, and SARMs. There is also a ban on synthetic cannabinoids, even though natural marijuana is no longer on the prohibited list. The testing is aggressive, takes place all year long. They can demand blood or urine at any moment. And if you refuse the test, the punishment is just as bad as failing it. Looking at the data since 1986, only about 42 suspensions have been handed out for banned substances, with a mere 13 linked to performance enhancers. Given the thousands of athletes over the last 40 years, that number seems incredibly low. Are the players clean, or are they just geniuses at beating the test? Some conspiracy theorists believe the NBA turns a blind eye because suspending superstars hurts the bottom line. Let us look at the Hall of Shame. Michael Ray. Richardson was banned for life in '86 after failing 3 cocaine tests. This guy was a 4-time All-Star, dropping 14.8 points a night, and addiction completely erased his NBA future. He was eventually reinstated but never played a minute in the league again. John Drew of the Hawks suffered the same fate, a lifetime ban for cocaine. He was an elite scorer, averaging over 20 points, but the drugs won. The 80s claimed so much talent. Roy Tarpley is perhaps the saddest story. A skilled 7-footer who had all the tools to be a legend, but substance abuse destroyed him. Banned in 91, he fought back, only to be banned again in 95. He tried to sue the league for discrimination, but the court shut him down. On the flip side, look at Chris Birdman Anderson. He caught a 2-year ban for meth in 2006, but clawed his way back to win a ring with Miami in 2013. That is a true redemption arc. It shows that a suspension does not have to be a death sentence. In modern times, we saw Tristan Thompson get hit with 25 games in 2024 for ibutamoren and LGD 4033. DeAndre Ayton faced the same fate in 2019 for using a diuretic to mask other drugs. John Collins served his 25 games that same year for growth hormones. Even Bobby Portis of the Bucks had to sit out for tramadol usage. The guys at Gil's Arena drew a direct comparison to that case. Just look at the numbers. How long was Bobby Portis out? Was it 20 games? No, it was 25. Wait, does this narrative sound familiar? It should, because it mirrors the exact same scenario Bobby Portis found himself in last year, resulting in a 25-game ban. Right, I recall that now. His representative insisted it was an inadvertent slip-up, which sounds suspiciously like the defense Paul George is mounting today. It is becoming a tired cliche in this league. A superstar tests positive, the PR machine churns out a mistake apology, and the news cycle spins forward. If you enjoy uncut sports analysis, make sure to hit that subscribe button right now. Now, we need to pivot to the Philadelphia 76ers, because this suspension throws a massive wrench into their championship chase. Ironically, there is a financial silver lining here. According to cap expert Bobby Marks from ESPN, this disaster actually gives the front office some breathing room. The numbers are wild. The Sixers are looking at saving over $5 million in luxury tax penalties, specifically because of George's suspension without pay. That deduction leaves the franchise hovering just over $1 million above the tax apron, giving them a golden opportunity to duck under the tax line this week. Essentially, the organization gets a tax variance credit of $5.8 million, representing 50% of the salary George forfeits. This takes them from being deeply penalized to sitting just $1.26 million over the limit. That financial wiggle room is huge because it might let them tweak the roster without getting hammered by those strict second apron rules. With the trade deadline looming, this newfound flexibility could act as a green light for Philadelphia to hunt for reinforcements. Coach Nick Nurse is going to need every able body, relying heavily on guys like Kelly Oubre Jr. and Caleb Martin to stop the bleeding while their star sits. Shifting gears, we have to acknowledge the NBA has made massive strides regarding player wellness, launching the Mind Health Initiative back in 2018. Ever since the 2019 season, it has been mandatory for all 30 franchises to keep a licensed mental health pro on the payroll full-time. The league even provides free resources like the Headspace app to ensure players have an outlet for their stress. This cultural shift really started when stars like DeMar DeRozan and Kevin Love bravely opened up about their internal struggles, shattering the stigma. You might remember DeRozan tweeting about his depression, or Love writing that powerful essay about his mid-game panic attack back in 2018. Love even started his own fund to champion the cause. Don't forget to like this video if you support athletes speaking out on mental health. Paul George has praised those guys for breaking barriers, and he has often been the face of campaigns discussing vulnerability in sports. But here is the elephant in the room that everyone is thinking but afraid to say. Is this genuine, or is the mental health card being played to soften the blow of a drug bust? We may never get the full story. What is certain is that he is out for 25 games, he is losing nearly $12 million, and Philly is in trouble. To be fair, George is no stranger to public scandals. His career has had its fair share of messy headlines. Remember the legal battle in 2013 with Daniela Rajic? A judge slammed him for allegedly dodging his duties as a father. That was a tabloid nightmare involving custody and support fights, though they eventually patched things up. They actually tied the knot in 2022 and have 3 kids now, so at least that drama resolved itself peacefully. However, you can't forget 2014 when he tweeted those controversial takes regarding the Ray Rice domestic violence scandal in the NFL. He appeared to defend the indefensible, sparking outrage from fans and even getting a public scolding from Pacers legend Larry Bird. George walked it back and apologized, claiming he opposes abuse, but the internet is written in ink and many fans never forgave that lapse in judgment. Yet, this PED suspension might just be the darkest mark on his resume, especially considering the stakes for Philadelphia right now. He claims he will use this downtime to get his mind and body right for a playoff push, but talk is cheap. The Sixers are now left staring at the calendar, wondering if their big gamble has already gone bust.